Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the TNITS What and Why webinar. So I see people are still joining, but I guess we can already start with a brief introduction. So I am Carmela Canonico, Support Manager at Ertico and responsible for the TNITS Executive Office. First of all, I would like you to share some important information about privacy with you. So, as you could already read on the registration page, this webinar will be recorded and made available online, mostly on our TNITS website and the Ertico Academy. And the list of attendees, name plus organization, will be made public. If you wish your name not to be on that list, please send me an email to that address you can see on your screen. Now we'll go quickly through the agenda for the day. So we will explain what is TNITS, highlighting the advantages of the TNITS services and what it brings to the country, why TNITS is highly needed, which application and services it enables, and the trust, integrity, and quality of data. We will also show you the status of implementation in 2 member states, namely Cyprus and Finland, and also the road to future, so an outlook on the future of TNITS, including our strategy. And then after the presentations, we will have a Q&A sessions. And after the webinar ends, there will be a brief survey. It's only 5 questions. I would really kindly ask you to answer to that. If you wish to pose a question, there are 2 methods. So during the presentations, you can type and send your question there in the question panel. Or during the Q&A session, you will be able to raise your hand, just push the icon of the little hand, and then you will be unmuted and will be able to ask your question to the panelists. So let's start now with our presentation on what it is TNITS. The presentation will be done by Christian Klein, Manager Data Acquisition and Business Development at HERE Technologies, that's located in Germany, and is chair of TNITS. Thank you very much, Christian. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Carmela, and thanks for the introduction, and good afternoon, and also welcome from my side to this webinar on TNITS, What and Why. I will give you a brief introduction on what is TNITS and what is it all about. So what is TNITS concerned about? It's about map data exchange with road authorities for intelligent transportation services and navigation systems. And as you can see on this picture, it's mainly about features which are more permanent and which are really ends up in the base layer data, like speed limits, restrictions. And navigation and assistance systems really needs to be up to date and accurate to ensure a secure guidance for the end user. And also what this picture shows is that the reality is quite complex and sometimes or often needs a lot of interpretation, which not only can be done by sensor data. And this is why we have this TNITS process, which is, as I said before, data exchange, map data exchange with road authorities. And so where does TNITS position itself inside the digital infrastructure of intelligent transportation services? We mainly have to differentiate 2 streams of data which are coming from road operators or public authorities. One is more for services, so service layer data, which is like incidents, traffic flows. This is mainly served by DATEX2. And the other one is about base layer data, which is really the foundation for the services on top, for the dynamic services on top. And this is then, as you can see here, where TNITS is located. Yeah, really the goal of TNITS is to serve the road user with accurate and trusted information coming directly from the road operators. For this, the TNITS Association was founded under ERTICO. So ERTICO is coordinating the TNITS Association, where we have members from road authorities and also the two leading European map providers, TomTom and HERE. We are supporting inside the association the EU policy and vision of data sharing and collaborating in standardization with the European Committee of Normalization, which is then in the technical chapter 278, which is really all about ITS standardization. Here we are maintaining and supporting the technical specification for TNITS. Additionally, the TNITS Association gives implementation support to new members, as we have really experienced road authorities inside our associations, like you see the logos here: Finland, Norway, Sweden, and some others, and which can really give support to new members. And also, we all are having already running services inside those countries and members of the TNITS Association. Apart from the association, we have also a running EU-funded project with 20 partners across Europe. And in this project, we are really supporting standardization and implementation. And the goal is to establish TNITS services in 15 member states, which then means fresh and trusted data for ITS coming directly from road operators from 15 countries for data users and data reuse. Also in this project, we are establishing a feedback loop from the data user to the road authorities in order to improve data quality and also the processes of data exchange. And last but not least, we're also looking inside this project for new features and use cases, like multimodal use cases, to enable a seamless navigation and information for road users. Yeah, this was my part. So thank you. I would like to hand over then again to Carmela.
Thank you very much, Christian, for this very clear presentation. After this overview on what TNITS is and what it does, we go to Frank Dimes, Senior Manager at ERTICO and Coordinator of the TNITS Go project, to have an overview on why TNITS is needed. Please, Frank, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carmela. Good afternoon and welcome to this session. So this part of the presentation will explain why deploying TNITS services is a good idea and why we do all these efforts. So if you look to the reason for deploying TNITS services, then we look at what type of applications or services can be realized by this type of data sharing. So the next slides will go in detail on application services and trust. If you talk about data sharing, then we also address topics like trust, quality and integrity of the data, and the sharing mechanisms behind it. It is especially the element of trust which is the big differentiator for TNITS data sharing mechanism in relation to the other data sharing services. So let's look at the applications that are already realized today or possible on a short notice. So on short notice, map data is greatly contributing to the, for instance, ISA, intelligent speed advice, since of course driving, if you like to save in a safe way, the speed limits, knowing the speed limits is very important, and the speed limits are part of the digital map and part of the data that is sent out by the authority. But also other elements such as the road topology and curvature, or other road and traffic conditions, often the legal speed limit also need to be communicated to the driver. Digital maps are able to reflect legal speeds on sections of the road network where implicit restrictions apply instead of single post ones. So these will enhance the efficiency of a trip drive, for instance, or finally potentially also result in advices for green driving. On the longer run, on the longer time perspective, we of course look at the roadmap for connected automated drive, and it's clear that accurate map information on geolocation, road attributes, and traffic signs are very needed for helping this to enable this automated drive. And of course, the first implementation of automated drive are, for instance, platooning and also helping the various AS levels in automated drive. Now, if you look to services, then we can address the digitalization of physical infrastructure. And this digitalization will help you as authorities to gain a lot of operational efficiency, like usually digitalization does. TNITS is today a sharing methodology for base layer data for creating digital maps, so your authorized data gets finally inside the car. Then we can also, we already talked about ISA, which is on the slide, and then about multimodal extensions. Then we of course are talking about mobility as a service, and you have to be aware that the TNITS specification already extends the support for this in the MMTIS data 2019. So TNITS data can provide a lot of attributes like the place and position of the multimodal hubs, the type of transfer, for instance, the metro station, bus station, share, biking, parking, whatever. It can mention these capabilities, and it provides the guidance to automated vehicles in the future for this multimodal approach. Then about future potentials. So if you talk about future potentials, then we are talking about at this moment already in the Commission, in the CCAM discussions about the potential role of TNITS related to traffic management. And we also have a very new feature in mind about enabling dynamic exemptions for specific automated transport, like heavy trucks or dangerous goods. Now let's have a look at the data sharing itself. So the importance of TNITS as a data sharing mechanism. The usual attributes are trust, quality, and integrity of these data. So about trust, the data is of course the origin of the authority, and by definition it is authoritative data. It is trusted. So this is really a main differentiator of this data sharing mechanism related to all other known data sharing mechanisms, for instance, from the private world. Now, regarding quality, we will never reach 100% quality, but today's efforts we do in the TNITS Go project to develop a mechanism like the feedback loop, which we already mentioned. This will be a tool that can positively impact the data quality. And the feedback loop will also, let's say, go together with the validation mechanism of the data. So it can improve gradually the data that comes from the authority. And finally, we can address the integrity of the data. Yeah, this is a hard topic, and it's still, let's say, it's related to cybersecurity and still a lot related to research. But we are looking to, let's say, new technologies or available technologies like visual labeling or watermarking that we can use as a recognition that this data is the original authenticated data. And we are investigating these possibilities to make the delivery channel in an end-to-end way completely integer. So this concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer your questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Frank, for why we should all implement TNITS. All the member states should implement TNITS. Now, speaking about member states, we will give an overview on the status of implementation. We'll start with Cyprus, who recently joined the TNITS family, and we will have the presentation delivered by George Christou from KIOS Research and Innovation Center of Excellence of the University of Cyprus. George works as a project coordinator for several transport and GIS-related projects. Please, George, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, thanks Carmela for the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity to share my experience about this amazing project. So I'm George Christou, and I represent the team which is implementing the TNITS platform in Cyprus. The project of the TNITS Go in Cyprus is managed by the Department of Public Works of the Ministry of Transport. The Ministry of Transport has a long-term collaboration with the University of Cyprus and the Research and Innovation Center of Excellence, with the overall scope to upgrade the current infrastructure to maintain the National Road Network database, conduct research in ITS, fault detection and monitor of the road network, and personnel training in intelligent transport systems area. Since the department didn't have the necessary resources to implement the TNITS platform, the project has subcontracted to KIOS Research Center under the same collaboration. As about the current state of the implementation in Cyprus, we are in a phase where a demo version of the TNITS has already been developed, and it can be found in the website shown in the slides. And now we are near the full implementation of the pilot service, where at the first stage, we will share information about the speed limit changes, and later other attributes will be supported as well. Regarding the road network, which is covered by the service, we focused on the 13 network, which is shown in the map with the red color. But in the near future, we are gonna include and provide information about the main roads in Cyprus as well, which is shown with the blue color in the map. Concerning the challenges we faced through the project, we can split the challenges into two categories, the technical and not technical. On the one hand, regarding the technical, the main technical challenge we faced so far was to connect the TNITS scope with other related projects of the ministry and the Department of Public Works. Secondly, we had to perform some adjustments in the road network database for the service to work properly and create a traffic sign database which was not existed so far in Cyprus. And the last technical challenge was to align with the TNITS specifications. However, I need to note that the specifications are very clear and flexible, and we had a lot of help from the TNITS team. And this is very helpful because of the structure of the TNITS, since the more mature members with already implemented service can help the younger members to implement their service as well. On the other hand, we had the non-technical challenges. We found quite challenging to map the current processes of changing anything in the road network, since in our case, in the case of Cyprus, multiple departments were involved. So we needed to understand how this process from the decision is being implemented. Another challenge we are facing, which is very critical, is to change some internal processes to ensure faster data collection regarding changes in the road network. As about the benefits for Cyprus, by building and having this service, we are expecting to increase the road safety, since the road users will be more accurate, will have more accurate information about the road network. Also, the TNITS became a motivator to collect data faster and have more up-to-date roads network database for Cyprus. For example, now we are looking to technologies to automate the process of collecting traffic signs, And if it wasn't for the TNITS, maybe this wouldn't happen at this moment. In addition, through the feedback loop, we're expected to increase the quality of our data by having direct contact with the map providers, which wasn't possible before. And lastly, we found the technical part of the implementation that it could fit other purposes, such as exchanging data between several departments and local authorities, and we are currently looking into that as well. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much for this overview on Cyprus implementation. It was very clear. And now we go from recently joining member states to one member state who is one of our champions, TNITS champion. We go to Finland and to Matti Pesu from the Finnish Infrastructure Agency. Matti works as a head of development in the information services. Thank you, Matti. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you, and hello all. It's nice to be here talking with you about the TNITS. Hopefully my screen is now showing and I'm able to go on. So the idea today is to talk about three things. I'm going to tell you shortly what the DigiRoad information system is, and then take a look at what TNITS has to do with our DigiRoad, and then look briefly into the future, what's coming up next here in Finland. First, the DigiRoad information system. Basically, it is a road and highway and street information system that gathers all the Finnish road data into one data set. And the data comes from the Finnish cities and municipalities, as well as from the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency, the place I'm working in, and then also from the National Land Survey. And from those organizations, the data is then gathered into one data set or one information system, where we basically have the road centerline geometries and over 40 attributes describing what the roads actually look like. And it covers everything. It covers the state-owned roads, the city streets, and also the smaller ones, the pro roads. So the data is then, of course, used somehow. It has a purpose. So the cities and the municipalities are using the data for various purposes, as well as map makers, such as here and TomTom and Google and OpenStreetMap, just for starters. So DigiRoad is basically then being put into the other road data products. Of course, planning the Finnish infrastructure and the cities and also transport services use DigiRoad. What has the TNITS have to do with DigiRoad? Basically, what the TNITS service is, it's a machine collecting road datasets from different European countries and making those national road datasets available for different information ecosystems. And it's a way to standardize, way to deliver the data in a very efficient and not time-consuming way for all the users. And this is now the point I'm trying to deliver on this slide. The DigiRoad and the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency wants the DigiRoad to be used by the biggest public possible. We want people to use our data. And with the TNITS and with the information ecosystems, the companies are arranging, we are able to do that. So the TNITS service enables DigiRoad to be used by the biggest possible public out there. Okay, the same thing here in written. Then into the future, what's happening right now is that we are seeing vehicle automation. We are talking about it a lot, and we are of course seeing some automated vehicles in different stages on the roads already. And at the same time, we are seeing other traffic and transportation phenomena evolving around us also. Walking and cycling, for example, are some new things that we have to make happen more, and they are craving for new data. The methods for collecting this new data that must be collected are basically using automated data collection from sensors in vehicles or by the roadsides from aerial vehicles. Everything, all the automated machines delivering data are coming into our processes more and more. And in Finland especially, we are actually focusing a lot on collecting the traffic signs information right now. So that is something that is going to happen in the near future. And to wrap this up, the TNITS is a very important link in the data chain from the data producers to the public data. And this data chain is becoming more important day by day. That is why we in Finland are on board on the TNITS. Thank you.
Dear Matti, thank you very much. And I find your presentation very interesting. And after this, we go to the last presentation of the day. So last but not least, we will see the road to the future from Tom Jensen from TomTom, Strategic Partner Developer Manager in the Maps Sourcing Department. Please, Tom, go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Camilla, and thank you all for joining. Thanks for the introduction also. I have a long history at TomTom and working with partner development. I'm going in the next 5 minutes to look at 3 main topics. I'm going to fill you in on the needs of digital maps to drive safer. I'm going to give you an overview of TNITS' position and role within the digital infrastructure. And then I'm going to tell you about the strategy of the TNITS platform. To shape the future of mobility in a world of increasing reliance on digital maps as an accurate representation of reality. As in life, change is a constant on road as well. When a map does not reflect the latest changes, like a construction of a new road, a driver or even a self-driving car can suddenly be confronted with surprises while navigating. Already today, do level 1 and level 2 enable automated vehicles, paving the road to safer, reliable, safe driving vehicles. The TomTom map is as real-time as it gets. To incremental updates, we ensure the shortest possible time between a change happening and is being reflected in a map on the market today. TNITS are as a source that give us the ability to provide these map changes already for some features like speed limits, but also other features like lane information are important for autonomous cars. As in the overview given earlier by Christian in this webinar, are the TNITS about exchange of map updates in the base layer. So far have been focused on establishing and building stable services by the road operators in several countries in Europe. Similar services are placed for the service layer data like traffic events and dynamic content, like the DATEX 2. The partners of the DATEX 2 community do also have more local partners, like with cities. So what we are going to focus our strategy on is to enlarge the network coverage within the current countries, and then we also like to have more countries, more member states to join us. We will also focus more locally and see if we, together with the DataX2, can help giving some guidance and connect more with cities to implement services. So what we will do, we will take the lead with the road operators and the transport agencies to enlarge coverage. We are going to cooperate with other associations to enable local or non-city level together with DataX2 to give a guidance in the different opportunities and information of our services. And then we are going to support on how service data are reaching in the end user vehicles in regards to content and quality. So in our current offering, we are, as told earlier also, we have focus on about authorized information, trusted data, and we do that by having specifications in place. We have support to implement. We have reference implementations or documents, but we also have a network of people, some present in the call here today, but also much other as experts and technical people which can help implementing these services. In our future offering, we're also going to look at the feedback loop which is current going, where we even can give status about how and which of the data that is used that is from the provider. Then we also work closely about standardization, and we will also have SLA in place to evaluate and monitor the service conditions, so have guidance about that. And then we are going to support to build publishing tool and methodologies to enlarge coverage. By the way, did you know that with the EU-founded TNITS Go project, the number of countries with the TNITS service would grow from 3 to more than 15, and may call for a TNITS Go 2 project. So I filled you in on the needs of digital maps to drive safer. I gave you an overview of the TNITS position and the role within the digital infrastructure, and I told you about the strategy of the TNITS platform. Thanks for listening. I will now give the word back to Camilla.
Thank you very much, Tom. All very clear and much needed. So with you, we reach the end of our presentation. So we will start now the question and answer session. So just 1 minute. So let's go on. I can see there is one raised hand, Mr. Stevens. So you will be able to ask your question now.
No, I have no question. Sorry, apologies.
No worries. That's okay. So after this, let me check. So to the audience, if you wish to make a question live, just raise your hand virtually. In the meanwhile, we will go through the questions that we received in the chat during the webinar. So the first one is to Frank Dans. We have been asked, could you please describe better the concept of dynamic exemption you mentioned in your presentation earlier?
Yes, Carmela, and thanks for the question. I tried to do that. Yeah, this is probably brand new, but dynamic exemptions is a very new concept, and I was confronted with that when I was at Han University in the Netherlands, so the Dutch Nijmegen Arnhem University, and they have a project in cooperation with Rijkswaterstaat, so the road authority in the Netherlands. And basically, it's an online tool that can calculate the compliance of a physical road in relation to a certain transport. For instance, like heavy goods transport. They like to find out if the heavy goods transport is able to travel from A to B on a road. So this tool checks if the road fits the transport, and my idea behind it is that this tool can generate a digital certificate for, let's say, an exemption, a dynamic exemption to allow, let's say, this transport, or maybe on a certain time or on a certain road. And of course, if you think about this tool, then it needs very accurate map data in order to calculate this compliance check. So there you find, let's say, also a role for TNITS to fill in. I hope this helps.
Well, I think it's much clearer now. Thank you very much, Frank. So we go now to our next question, which is directed to Matti Peso. And we have the following. You mentioned automation for data acquisition. How does that work in Finland?
Oh, yes, thank you for the question. Traditionally, the data for DigiRoad is created in a way that somebody makes a administrative decision, and then the data is created from that decision. And that's the old-fashioned way, and that's not going anywhere. We are still going to keep data flowing that way also. But at the same time, we are for example, we are checking out computer vision systems that will be able to from a video stream taken from a moving vehicle. Computer vision systems that can extract, for example, traffic signs from video material taken from those vehicles. That's one thing that we are looking into. The other one is aerial images or laser scanning data taken from airplanes or smaller drone-like things. We are looking into collecting the painted traffic signs from the pavement, from the surface of the road, looking to collect data from those objects, from for example, aerial images. So these are just few examples that we are trying to use to make humans interfere with the data production less.
Well, that sounds very inspiring. Thank you very much, Matti. And staying with the data, how is instead data acquired in Cyprus, George?
Hi, Gamla. Thank you for your question. As I mentioned in my presentation, unfortunately, in Cyprus, we were not collecting data for traffic sites and traffic regulations until now. However, through the projects of the TNITS, we realized that there is room for improvement and there is a need to collect this kind of data. So at the first stage, what we are now doing is that we're developing a mobile app which will be given to the field teams, and once they are going to change something in the road network, they will need to record this change on the fly. And as well, we are looking into some more automated processes in the near future, like those that Matti mentioned, but these are very early stages. For now, just a mobile app as a field collector.
Well, so my understanding is that before TNITS, you were not at all collecting data in Cyprus, and then you started almost 2 years ago with TNITS, and now you are already looking into possible automation in the near future. And so about that, how quickly you're progressing in Cyprus, I have another question for you. Which is related to something you mentioned. You mentioned that you had support. You received support for the TNITS platform in implementing the TNITS pilot service for Cyprus. How useful was that support you received?
Good. Thank you again for the question. So, what helped us the most during the implementation from the beginning until today, it was the structure of the TNITS. So the TNITS members have different levels of maturity. For example, Cyprus a year ago was at the starting stage, while Finland, for example, were in a stage that they are maintaining the platform and expanding the platform. So there are three levels. There are the beginning. There are some members that are in a stage of further developing the platform, and there are some members that are maintaining the platform. Therefore, for any stage we were, if we had any questions, any issues within developing, or any questions about the specifications, there was a member that had the answer for us. In addition, Finland, for example, has uploaded their source codes and the architecture on GitHub, which was very nice insight to have from the first day. Also, regarding the specifications, we had a dedicated meeting just to talk about any possible questions. And after that, we had several meetings with smaller groups organized by the TNITS to help us with the developing. Overall, the communication and the shared documents were very helpful, and I hope that in the future we will be able to help other members to begin with their implementations.
Perfect. Thank you very much, George, for sharing your experience. And now the next question is addressed to both Here and TomTom. The question is, do you have a success story with one of the EU countries regarding the feedback loop, or is it too early to talk about success? Thank you.
Will you start, Tom, or should I? Maybe I can start. So yeah, yes, it's too early to talk about a success because we are really in the middle of developing this feedback loop. So we are starting a pilot together with Finland, and yeah, we are starting to talk about how we can really have or implement a process, an automatical process of giving feedback to the road authorities. So it's in development, but yeah, nothing really to show for the moment, I would say. So maybe we have something to add, Tom?
No, and I can say that since earlier this year, only the specification had been available and certified for us to start the development. So it's not like we didn't want to start. We just needed to have the means to do so. And also, this is mainly done under this TNITS Go project. Which we are actually have to deliver next year. So we do the plan right now, and then we are going to deliver this next year. That's the intention.
And then maybe to add from the map provider side, I think it's also really useful to have this feedback loop, because after all, we are really improving the process and the data quality, and so we are improving also the data we are getting back again. And I think so it totally makes sense to have this interaction.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's going to be like a closed circle, huh? Receiving data and getting feedback and giving feedback and get new data and so on. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much to both Christian and Tom. We go now to the next question, that is the following. So, is TNITS linked with the Open Data Projects and the EU Data Warehouse? Maybe Frank wishes to answer this?
Thank you, Carmela. I'm not, honestly speaking, personally, I'm not aware about this. Maybe the other panelists can fill in, but I'm aware about, let's say, the fact that TNITS links with national access points, and for instance, in the Netherlands, this is linked to what they have as a local data warehouse in the Netherlands. So together with the other, let's say, initiatives within the member states on building the NAPs, we are, of course, also using the NAP as a reference to TNITS relations, and I think that as a reference in the gateways. I don't, honestly speaking, I'm not so much aware about if you are linked to any EU data warehouse. Maybe the other panelists can fill in. Christian, do you know about this?
No. To be honest, never heard it. So maybe we should look at it. So no, for the moment, no idea.
Well, we thank Mr. Leroy for the question, and as we try to keep that as open as possible, but we will come back on this offline. And now we may proceed.
We can maybe mention that the services being operational of today is done with open data, which of course that as a map provider receiving the data have made it easier for us to implement.
Sure. Thank you, Tom.
May I also from Finland one comment. For example, the Finnish data it's open data, but the TNITS itself it's not something that is as a standard or as a technology interested in whether or not the contents that are delivered via TNITS service are open or not open. So it's something that the data provider decides. That's all.
Sure. In the end, it's always the member states who decides how open the data is.
The license agreements about this, huh? Okay.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So we have a couple of questions left so far, but I will recommend our audience, if you have something else to ask, please raise your hands or pose your question to our chat. So next one, it's still, again, Matti. So about your presentation, how do you see walking and cycling related to TNITS?
Okay, this is my favorite topic. Let's start from the big picture. Walking and cycling should happen more. We are in the middle of trouble with the climate, and we are in the middle of trouble with the people getting obese and all sorts of health problems due to inactivity, physical inactivity. So this is something that finally comes down to the transport system also. We need to engage people to move more, do more physical activity during daily activities to the schools and to workplaces and to buy things from the shop. So that must be activated. And what does it have to do with the TNITS or with the DigiRoads then? In order for us to know what's happening on the traffic, we need data. And we have tons of data from the car traffic and from the roads and highways and streets where cars are moving, but we do not have that much data from cycling ways or walkways or from those phenomena happening on those ways. How much are people walking or cycling? How are they doing that? From where are they leaving and where are they going? And what's the condition of the cycling ways and so on? That information is very much needed right now, and we find that we might not have it. So we have to hurry. We have to start collecting that data in order to collect the wisdom and enable people to use their muscles more.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very wishful thought, and we hope to be able at TNITS to help with that. So the last question from our audience is directed to Tom Hanson, and about the publication tool you mentioned in your presentation, if you could describe better what you were referring to and how it works.
Yeah, thanks, Camilla. If I understand the question correct, it's about actually the service itself and which tool there is behind there. So there will be, at the data owner, they will have a web service, which is a REST service where they will publish a so-called XML file describing out the updates that is happening in their database behind. The feedback loop is then about that we set up a similar web service as the receiving of the data as a map provider, where we are then telling in the same way in our web service in XML file if we receive the data and which of the transactions delivered in the XML that we are using in our products. I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, I'm glad to go more in in deeper technical offline.
Well, thank you very much. I think it clarifies what you were referring to and how map providers will use that information as well. And so far, we have answered all the questions we received. So thank you very much to the panelists and to the audience. And we will come back to you soon with the proceedings from this webinar, and the webinar will be made available online as mentioned in the beginning. Now, before we part ways, I would like to have your attention for a few minutes before, and because we will have our colleague Julia explain us what the Ethical Academy is. So, as mentioned, you will find our webinar in the Ethical Academy. So, please, Julia, if you...
Thank you, Carmela. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Carmela. I would like to take this opportunity to briefly introduce you the new Ethical initiative, which might be of interest to you. So, Ethical Academy has been officially launched recently in June at the ITS Congress in Eindhoven with the two main goals. So one of these goals is to better address impacts of ethical partnerships work, which represented both by public and private stakeholders, and of course to share knowledge and best practices from research to implementation in smart mobility sector. Here, you can, just a second. So here we would like to invite you to our new Ethical Academy webpage, where you can find more information on the courses we offer. We offer courses both online and face-to-face on a wide range of topics in the field of ITS and cooperative ITS. Also, we would like to suggest to visit the online training platform, which was developed in the framework of Capital Project. And of course, if you have any further questions and if you are interested in one of those trainings, please do not hesitate to contact either me or my colleague Željko. Thank you very much for your attention, and we are looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Julia. I'm sure many people will be interested in that. and they will find our webinar on TNITS under the Ethical Academy umbrella as well. So thank you very much to all the people who joined our webinar, and have a nice afternoon.